Okay, the NBA Finals are almost upon us. The NHL playoffs are heating up. There's lots to talk about, as always, on 3rd and 5. Gents, welcome into another episode number 21, I believe it is. Who's counting? Of 3rd and 5. James Thwaites, Dave Rice, myself, Simon Hampton, here to talk a bit of American sport for the next hour or so. Gents, pretty busy week for you two. How's things?
Yeah, pretty good. It was a scorcher on Saturday and Sunday here in
First sunburn of the season.
Going great in both NHL and basketball. Obviously, a bit of baseball on. Colin Kaepernick tried out for the Las Vegas Raiders this week. I think yesterday. So, busy week. What about you, Dave?
It's always good to see like the NFL's the number one, just deep down. Maybe that's obviously a personal thing, but just when you get these little stories, Kaepernick going there, that's a fascinating one to see. I mean, I would be surprised if I always thought originally a few years ago, someone like him, he's surely better than half the backup quarterbacks around the league, But after how many years has he been out? 7 nearly? That to me is a really interesting to see whether he's up to it. But yeah, it's great to see at least, because it was for all the wrong reasons that he was originally kind of pushed out. So hopefully, that'll be an interesting one to follow.
Be a great story.
Yeah, I'm glad. What was that?
But it'd be a great storyline. Regardless of how he goes, I mean, it's going to give yet another layer to the NFL season.
You do kind of wonder with all the bad press that the Las Vegas Raiders have had over the last year, whether it's kind of a bit of a PR move on their part. But I'm all for it. I'd love to see him as a backup. And exactly like you said, Dave, is he better than Geno Smith? Probably, and half these backups that are floating around the league. But here's another kind of NFL news. Washington Commanders looks like they've purchased $200 million worth of land in Virginia, which is rumored to be the site of their new stadium. So it's their current stadium, I believe, is technically in Maryland. So this shifts over to Virginia. It's about an hour drive, I think, out of
So I mean, what's the stadium called in Washington? FedEx Field?
FedEx Field.
So I think we've spoken about this previously on the pod. That's pretty universally known as the 30th. We'll call it the 30th best stadium in the NFL out of 30. So the absolute worst. So what's the 29th ranked stadium? Because that could soon become the worst.
Shit, you go probably Tennessee, I guess.
Yeah, the Nissan Stadium, at least it's got a
downtown
location.
though. Yeah. It's not. MetLife.
No, MetLife's still. I mean, MetLife's getting the soccer final, so it's still a good stadium. It's just poorly located.
Oh, I'll tell you, one of the worst ones actually is Levi Stadium in Santa Clara, in San Francisco.
Yeah.
Hugely away from the city, but the way it's designed, half the stadium basically gets blinded because of the way that the stadium's positioned. So when the sun's setting, it just nails you in the face.
Well, do you remember that's what happened in the Cowboys playoff game, where there was the Cowboys themselves playing into that sort of blinding sun that was kind of, they've got the sort of open at each sort of end zone end. The sun can kind of creep through, not fully, but because it's a roofed stadium, but and it kind of looked like it would have been impeding, which is just crazy. You don't see that in the new stadiums. SoFi and Allegiant, they're not going to have those sort of problems.
You'd hope not. Otherwise, it's multi-billion-dollar fuck up.
Yeah. But that's interesting. I actually didn't hear that. So Washington, So
yeah, is it close to town?
No, it's in Virginia. It's like an hour away. And then put traffic on top of that.
Good for the residents of Virginia. Is Virginia would it be easily accessible for, say, away fans? If you were Baltimore, you just jump on a train. That's what you'd hope, right?
But what I mean is that parts of Virginia are just across the river from downtown DC, but obviously it's proper out of town.
Yeah. So it's going to be pretty interesting because obviously Buffalo got approved for a new stadium, so they're going to do that. Washington now sound like they've got their new stadium hooked up. The next other team is Chicago, so Soldier Field again. Like they've looked like they've purchased some land. I think they've purchased land, probably about an hour out of town, south from Chicago, I believe. It's new stadiums are coming. It's just unfortunate that it's all taxpayer dollars paying for them.
Yeah, and what's the story about new NBA teams coming as well?
Well, we've kind of talked about that last, I think, a couple of the other weeks, like how there's those rumors that have been, starting to gain more and more momentum about Seattle getting a team and Vegas getting a team. And also, like, with that Vegas team, apparently LeBron being part of an ownership group of it, which I don't know if you can do, but yeah. What do you hear, Dave?
Same. It was just that I just remember seeing on Twitter that Seattle, very strong rumors that Seattle and Vegas were, and I think the current sort of like structure goes to the 24 season, so you're probably looking at 24-25 maybe was the timing.
Yeah. Well, I know that like when the Seattle Kraken in Seattle built a new indoor arena in Seattle, they were very clear about making sure that it was done to NBA specifications as well, and would be like, past regulation for the NBA. So I think that's been on the cards for a while. It'd be interesting to see if they came back as the Seattle Supersonics, or whether the Oklahoma City Thunder would have something to say about that, or how that would work. But you'd hope they would come back with the old branding. Yeah,
and just kind of for listeners' benefit as well, the current Oklahoma City Thunder was the Seattle Supersonics. So Kevin Durant, when he was first drafted in the NBA at number 2, he was actually drafted to Seattle Supersonic.
He played one season, right?
I believe so, yeah. And then moved to Oklahoma. But the same thing kind of happened, years and years ago when the original Charlotte Hornets moved to New Orleans and became the New Orleans
Bobcats.
Not New Orleans, I can't remember what they're called, maybe New Orleans Hornets or something. Then they ended up changing their name to the Pelicans. So Charlotte, when they got a basketball franchise back, were called the Charlotte Bobcats for ages. And then eventually they got back the Hornets name. So it's a bit weird. I mean, it happens with a lot of sports. Like, I think, like, technically the Baltimore Ravens were the original Cleveland Browns franchise or something.
Yeah, I know. The NFL is huge like that. They've all swapped. And even when you think of baseball, there was the Brooklyn Dodgers is probably the most sort of famous from here.
Well, the New York Giants, the San Francisco Giants as well. Yeah.
I think thinking about it. So Durant played for Seattle Supersonics. I can imagine those Durant Supersonic singlets are kind of very niche, like probably a fair bit of whack on eBay.
They actually sell them all over. So when you go to Seattle, any sports store still has Supersonics clothing, and Durant's the one player that's on all the gear still. Durant 35. So it's actually really easy to get your hands on a Durant Supersonic singlet.
Yeah, true.
You see them in the Nets games quite a bit as well.
Yeah. But let's rip into it and talk the current NBA season, which is getting closer and closer to the finals. The Warriors, Mavs, and the Heat Celtics wrapping up their series over the next few days. Start with the one that looks the most live. The Mavericks and Warriors are playing tonight as we record this, and so I think there's a fairly good chance that series is over by the time this podcast comes out. But we'll start with the Heat Celtics. Boston's up 3-2 and have game 6 at home in Boston tomorrow, which is Friday our time, Saturday New Zealand time. Is there a way back for the Heat, guys? There's a few injuries in that Miami team.
Yeah, but there were a few injuries on the Boston team as well. Obviously Marcus Smart has pretty much been confirmed as being some kind of cyborg. The fact that he's hit so many injuries and just runs to the locker room and comes back out. Obviously Robert Williams, I think, has been banged up a bit as well. But I think it's tough. I think we all had the Celtics going through in the series. I think it was 4-2, maybe. I want to say we said 4-2, but I just don't see the Heat being able to do this, especially without Tyler Hero, who's obviously, like you said earlier, Sire were alluding to. He's their main injury concern. Oladipo, they're having to get lots and lots of minutes out of him, and he's been playing great. But unfortunately, it's kind of Kyle Lowry has been awful. Jimmy Butler, Jimmy Butler's been great. But the key to success really, to me, feels like Bam Adebayo having a massive game. It seems like if he has a great game, they're winning. If he has a terrible game, they're losing. Obviously, like looking at the points from the game last night, it was pretty awful for all the starting five from the Heat. I believe Victor Oladipo, who came off the bench, outscored them all, which is insane. So Bam Adebayo, 9 points. Jimmy Butler, 6 points. Kyle Lowry, 3 points. Tucker, 0. Struss, 0. And then you got Victor with 23. So yeah, I don't see the Heat coming back. I feel like they're going to lose the game tomorrow. And then hopefully we get a great, hopefully healthy Celtics team in the final.
Well, they've scored 80 and 82 points the last 2 games against Boston, which I think, teams hardly ever score 80 points these days in the NBA. And so that speaks to the Celtics' very good defense, but it also speaks to the offensive woes that the Heat have been facing. But I mean, if you go out west, is there a way back for the Mavs, do you reckon, Dave?
Yeah, I think the smart money is definitely no. Because at the end of the day, even if they can, if they were to win tonight, it would sort of take me back to the Raptors series where, I think they were down to the 76ers 3-0, and then they managed to get it back to 3-2, and they were really dominant in that game 5, and they were going back to Toronto. So in this case, it would be going back to Dallas for game 6, thinking, tails up, 2 wins on the trot, and then the Raptors ended up losing game 6 pretty comfortably, the 76ers. And the Warriors have just, all they have to do really is just one good game together where, 2 of their 3 shooters are on song, whether that's Curry, Thompson, or Poole. And Looney's probably been the best player as well. So I just think, the Warriors are just looking too good. You're going to need even if Doncic gets 50 points, that's still no guarantee to win. So yeah, I just think, I'd love to see the Mavs get through. I wanted them to get through. For some reason, I just don't love the Warriors. But yeah, I just think, when you're 3-0 down, you just need one more win or one more good game. Or on the flip side, one more game where the Mavs don't quite, end of the day, they've been living and dying by the 3-pointers. So if they just have one night where they're not on, shoot 20% from beyond the arc, then it's game over. Series over.
Yeah, I think NBA analyst Ben Vines went into this a bit last week as well, where he was saying the Mavs' key to success is making sure that somebody else is having a good game, and it's not just Luka. It's Finney Smith, it's Brunson, it's whoever, Dinwiddie. And that happened in the other game, the game earlier this week, where Luka's got 13. He's almost got a triple-double. DFS has got 23. Bullock has 18. Brunson has 15. and then that's how you're going to beat them. But they almost fucked it up for themselves because the Warriors came roaring back, and it's pretty scary because on the flip side to that, Steph Curry's been pretty consistent across the playoffs. I think he's had a few games where he's kind of got low double-digit numbers. But when you've got Andrew Wiggins just having those Andrew Wiggins games where he's just quiet and then just comes in and just, scores 30, or you've got Poole just kind of lighting it up from 3, it's a hard team to take down. So did you see that fact that's been circling around on Twitter every time Kendrick Lamar releases a new album, the Warriors win a championship. So Kendrick Lamar has released a new album this year. So people are saying that the Warriors are going to win the championship. I still think the Warriors get knocked out by the Celtics, but we'll see.
Kendrick Lamar, is Kendrick Lamar a Warriors fan? He's from Compton. Is he from Compton?
Yeah, I think so.
So I assume he's a Lakers man, but
Lakers are Clippers.
Is from Compton.
Warriors are sort of like Man City. They haven't been around for that long in terms of any meaningful way. So I presume they mean like from his sophomore album onwards, because I reckon his first album, the Warriors, I could be wrong, but how long's? I think Kendrick Lamar's been around for a while now.
So To Pimp a Butterfly came out in 2015. It was their first win with Steph Curry. 2017.
No, but Mad City wasn't Mad City the first album? Side pod, we're going to go deep into the
Here we go.
hip hop rap.
God, I don't know. Just
I'm trying to find his NBA team. It's definitely
I just like to call it out. I like to call out the facts, you know. Yeah, fair enough. That's a bloody stretch, you know. Whoever's come up with that weird.
This is the kind of me and my wife talk about this all the time. The poor interns that have to go through and find these random facts for like random like things like that. Because it's like sometimes like every time the Lakers win a championship or make the playoffs or something like that, if it's in an election year, the next year like a Republican president gets into the US or something. Like there's always random ones.
If you want to find a connection with something, you can probably find one. Just search far enough. Did I see it right that it was? But this would be more of a more relevant stat. That the Warriors, if they make the finals, it'll be the 6th finals in 8 years, which would be the first team since the Bulls of the last dance glory years. Chicago Bulls that have done that.
6th final in 8 years. Yeah, they made. So they missed the last 2, and they made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 prior. So yeah, 6th and 8. Yeah. I mean, I'm bored as you touched on sort of not really liking the Warriors. I'm kind of bored of them as well. But I think a Warriors Celtics finals would be a very, very good series and a very good watch. I think this Warriors side's obviously just built their season up very nicely and it's peaking at the right time. And the Celtics side are very good in their own right. And I would love to see the brilliant defense of the Celtics go up against the Warriors in the finals. I think it'd be a fantastic series.
Yeah, I think as Threat said, I think it really hinges though on the Celtics are battered, have they got sort of like another sort of 7-game series in them? And that's kind of problem. In a way, as a fan, you kind of want everyone to have a week off, which obviously wouldn't suit the Warriors if that's the team that gets through. But you want both teams to be fresh because I feel like the Celtics kind of have their backs against the wall a little bit there. If that's the 2 teams that get through, as it stands in terms of health.
They need a Pro Bowl or something. But a couple more games to go in the conference finals, and then we'll have our NBA finals, which should be a lot of fun. But speaking more broadly on the NBA playoffs as a whole, there have been a lot of blowout victories throughout the series, and we sort of just got raised in our chat during the week about whether this playoff series has been good this year, or whether it's been able to hold our attention. Like, it doesn't feel like there's been a ton of tight games that have gone right down to the wire in the 4th quarter. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, this series of games has been like shit. I haven't really liked them that much, to be honest. Eastern Conference and Western Conference, like you said, it just seems to be like you're watching a team pull ahead and then they're ahead the entire game.
I think the closest one was the one we were at the pub, and it was close because Dallas went out to a huge. Was this game 1 or game 2 of the Western Conference? Dallas went out to quite a big lead, and then the Warriors pulled it back, and it was sort of like, can Dallas hold on? Yeah. But there have been no games that have been sort of tit for tat, like, in 2 minutes to go, there's 2 points separating them, and you're sort of glued to the TV. I don't think there's been really any games like that in the series.
No, and I think weirdly as well, like, while I've kind of enjoyed the Mavs Warriors just because like it makes for exciting basketball for me, where it's like lots of 3-pointers raining down and stuff like that. The Heat Celtic series, to me, I'm just kind of like, just get it over and done with. Like, just let the Celtics go through so we can just like go on to the next one. Just the Miami Heat team. I don't know whether it's like just because I don't like Kyle Lowry a lot. Like he just flops all over the court and it just drives me nuts watching him. But I just want that series to be over. I'm just ready for, I think, the finals at this point. And I like in my head, I really want it to be that Celtics Warriors one because I think that's going to give us the best basketball that we can see, which is a great defensive team and a great offensive team going up against each other.
And that's what you do want in these situations. Is certainly like if you're the NBA, you want the teams that are going to pull in. Like obviously at the start of the season, they probably might have said on paper Lakers, Nets, just because you got your super teams and like that would have pull in probably the most interest. But as it sort of stands with these four teams, I think without a doubt it's Celtics Warriors that will. I mean, would have been Bucks Warriors if it went that way. Would have probably got the most interest. But yeah, I think you definitely want. You definitely just. I agree with you that you sort of want the Heat gone. I feel like they're kind of a team that they're always going to be there or thereabouts. They're a consistent team, but like I don't know if they've got that. Like where they are now is that their ceiling. I don't know if they need some changes to sort of elevate. Do they need another genuine star? They've got some really good players, but do they need someone to sort of really supplement Butler that's more consistent anyway than what they've got with Bam and Lowry and Hero?
Yeah, the Heat are a weird team from that point of view. And like you've touched on something that I think is really interesting. And this is definitely a topic for another day, so I'm not going to go too deep into this, but like, is Jimmy Butler a superstar in the NBA?
No.
And I think
he's not consistent enough either.
No, like he's definitely coming into a realm of his own, but that's the thing with the Heat, right? Like when you think of the Warriors, it's Steph Curry. When you think of, the Celtics, it's Tatum. When you think of the Bucks, it's Giannis. Like when you think of the Heat, it's like, I guess Jimmy Butler. Like, it just feels like a bit of a weird thing. I think he does get a lot of disrespect, but he doesn't come off to me as a leader on that team either. Obviously, there are those frustrations, just before the playoffs where he got into a massive verbal argument, told the coach to get fucked, but and got a whiteboard thrown at him. But it's hard to root for a team, I think, when there's not like a clear superstar on it. Yeah.
I don't know about that. Like, I think it like.
Oh, you're rooting for the Washington Wizards now? Like,
no, they're going to clear superstar. He's just injured all the time.
I think he's probably.
I love the Cleveland Cavaliers or someone like that. Like,
yeah, but the Cleveland Cavaliers have a superstar, or an emerging superstar.
I think they've got a handful of very good players.
Yeah,
I see what Simon's saying. Like Cleveland, like
Darius Garland is amazing. Like,
but he's not on the level of. He's not on the level of Butler yet. Like I'm sure he'll get there. He'll potentially eclipse. But to Simon's point, Cleveland, there's no one at say Butler's kind of elite level as it stands.
No, but they're more exciting to watch because it's got a developing superstar. And I would say in my head,
and a young team.
Garland is going to be far better than Butler in the long run. But, it's like some of these other teams, like when they get through, you're just like, who gives a shit? Like, it's almost like the Clippers when they've got Kawhi. If they don't have Kawhi, like, who cares?
What about the everyman Brooklyn Nets, of 2-3 years ago? When
I was just going to bring that one up. That was going to be my point.
That's probably the team where, to be honest, I think we actually did have Durant and Kyrie in the squad, but they didn't play in the bubble. Or it was the year before that.
No, it was the year before that because they did a sign and trade for Durant, and that's when they gave out D'Angelo Russell. So the season before that, when they had Russell, Jared Allen, Karis LeVert, Dinwiddie, a couple
Joe
of
Harris
others. I can't remember now. Joe Harris is still there, I think. A few others.
When did Lopez leave? Years before that?
I think he played that season. I think he might have been that, or maybe it was the year before. But Yeah, I mean, I quite like those teams that are real teams, but I mean, I get what you're saying. Like, it's definitely more box office to have your superstars out in the court, and your Lukavis Curry narrative or your Durant v Tatum narrative. And it's certainly more exciting in that regard.
Yeah, well, you can always put them on big poster billboards, like kind of like it's a boxing fight. You've got these with the stars, right? It's easier to do when you've got these Ja Morant's, Giannis types, Steph Curry's. I think the other thing that's kind of really off-putting, and I was actually watching the game yesterday, the Heat game. I think it's that the stadium there, or the arena, suffers from the same thing as the Westpac or Sky Stadium in Wellington, where they've painted like their exit sort of like red, so it looks like there's all these empty seats, but it's actually the exits.
It's the exits.
So that's just a horrible design, because you always think it's empty, and to be honest, half the time it is a little bit empty as well. So that's never a great.
Well, that and their theme at that arena this year is like white hot playoffs or something like that. So they're all wearing white t-shirts as well. So like the arena just looks very like sanitary. It looks like a hospital or something like that.
Yeah.
Just touching on that point you made earlier about the Warriors being ratings winners. The 5 highest rating NBA games that weren't played on Christmas Day this season were all involving the Warriors. So the Christmas Day games rate the socks off, like way above anything else. And then the rest of that, the top 3 are Warriors Lakers games, and then it's the other 2 are other Warriors.
What's an interesting dynamic is NFL are starting to sort of flex their muscles more and more. I think they might have had 1 game this year, possibly last season, on Christmas Day, and I'm pretty sure there may be 3 this year. So they're very much like, we don't care, because it's always been like Christmas is for the NBA. It's kind of famous, and it's always the big games and big teams. I think it was the Nets and Lakers.
It was Nets, Lakers, Warriors, Suns, Celtics, Bucks, and they drew. I've got the ratings here. They drew far more than any other game.
Thank you.
Knicks Hawks. That was the other one, but that came in 10th overall. So that was the one no one watched.
I went to that game.
You were at that game.
That was Trey. If Trae Young was available, like that probably got suffered because Trae Young didn't play. If he played, I would have tuned in that other, and that's why you were going. I know.
That
was the right idea.
It was midday tip off as well. So 9 a.m. on the West Coast.
So I got the numbers here. So Nets Lakers have 5.7 million, Warriors Suns 5.1 million, Celtics Bucks 4.9 million, Hawks Knicks 2.9 million. But the next biggest after the Celtics Bucks at 4.9 is Lakers Warriors at 3.6 million for regular season games. So there's a huge drop off. Like Christmas Day is clearly NBA. So if the NFL can crack that, power to them. But it's popular NBA day.
The Americans kind of love they call it, it's their pastimes, right? This is what they like to do on Thanksgiving. They watch
Thanksgiving
the Cowboys, and so you're trying to shift away people from what they've always done for a long time.
We had some all NBA teams named recently, and they did a first team, second team, third team. So they had, Giannis, Luka Doncic, Jokic, Booker, and Tatum in the first team. Embiid, Morant, Durant, Curry, DeRozan in the second team, and then Towns, LeBron, Chris Paul, Trae Young, Pascal Siakam in the third team. The big one there is Joel Embiid being in the second team. Seems pretty hard done by there.
Yeah, and I mean, this just kind of, again, because it's positions. So obviously you would want him up there in that first team kind of thing. But obviously with Jokic winning the MVP, if you flip that round, that would feel weird as well. I pretty much agree with where everything is on this, to be honest. I think there's probably some slight snubs in there. I think Jimmy Butler not being, on there makes probably no sense in my head. I would say he's at least on that third team.
Who for?
Yeah, it's a good one. I'd probably say take out Siakam.
Siakam, I think.
Yeah.
But Siakam had a good year, but
what
But
about
did Butler have that good a year? Like, I mean, Butler's been like a lot better. I feel like Butler's been a lot better in the playoffs than he was regular season.
So Butler this year averaged 21, just under 21 and a half points, just under 6 rebounds, 5.5 assists, and 1.6 steals a game, which is pretty great.
Pretty good.
What about here? What do you think about? So, do you think Durant is second team? Do you think he had a second team season?
Yeah,
compared to maybe LeBron.
I mean, the only thing for Durant is that he missed a lot of time. But I think when he was playing, he was pretty brilliant. Yeah, he deserved.
Yeah, and I mean, sure. Durant averaged 29.9 points.
I mean, if Durant's not injured, if Durant's not injured, he's probably first team, I think.
Yeah,
over Tatum, I'd say. I mean, you've got to remember he was in the MVP discussion prior to his injury. He was playing so well then, and he got really worked hard down the stretch, but he was playing very well first half of the season.
Yeah, you do forget that it is a very long season, and they are probably looking at it. Sometimes you sort of fall back on like recency bias in terms of within a season, right? And like so, DeMar DeRozan he was lights out first half of the season, but then he sort of faded. As the season wore on, as the Bulls started to sort of trend downward. But they've recognized that he elevated a team that no one really gave a chance in that sort of first sort of pre-Christmas grouping of games.
I guess like here's a good one for you guys. Who do you think will be up there next year on that list that isn't there this year? And in my head, like I've kind of thought about this a little bit. I reckon Kyrie potentially is up there. Kyrie,
like Dame Lillard, full season from him potentially. I think Portland's going to make some moves in the off season, and I think they'll be pretty strong next year. So I think it does help for players when they're on strong teams as well for getting into these first, second, third teams.
What about Zion?
Zion's another one we can see on there.
Because the thing with Zion, like if he stays in the Pelicans, like they've got some pretty good pieces around him, in that team. Like, so they should definitely be in the playoffs on paper if he's fit and firing.
Well, I was going to say before, like Brandon Ingram is obviously there, and so he's probably up there. I think. What's his name?
What about Darius Garland?
Yeah, Garland's probably a good shout. I'd say Jarrett Allen's potential. We've got.
I can tell you who won't be
tough. There's some good centers though. It's like tough to crack. Those three centers are going to be good for a while. James Harden won't be, for sure.
He could be in the Razzies, the All NBA Razzies team.
I'd love to see RJ Barrett up there.
Yeah,
he's been trending the right way, right? Like he's getting better each year, and it's now getting to the point now. Can he kind of be a kind of lead, if you'd like, and sort of put that Knicks into the playoffs, because I think it's good for the NBA when the Knicks are in the playoffs.
Yeah. Who out of the players that are in there right now that got named would be most likely to drop out? I'd look at two and say probably DeRozan and Chris Paul would be the two.
DeRozan?
100% DeRozan. I would say Chris Paul.
And maybe LeBron, just purely because of his age. Like, is he going to be able to keep it going?
Yeah.
I'd say Karl Anthony Towns as well. Depending, because there's rumors he might not be on that team next year. And weirdly, I don't want to jinx this, but I was almost going to say Durant. Not from the fact that I think he has massive drop off in his or massive regression in his game, or just from like injury concerns kind of thing, just as players get older. So I hope I haven't jinxed him.
I guess another one that I wouldn't expect to drop off from all the way, but maybe from the first team is, especially just depending on what happens with Chris Paul, and if he regresses, is maybe how does that impact Devin Booker, and does he have like a not so good season? Because the Suns might not go so well. So I'm sure he's still a star. But he might go to sort of like a Jimmy Butler level, and it's like he might be on the third team as opposed to being in that first team.
Yeah, sure. I like that call because those two feel like they're on that list because they're very much linked together. Obviously, Chris Paul's high assist rate is giving a lot of those points to Devin Booker.
And And I mean, it's at some point, Steph Curry and the Warriors are going to start to tail off. I mean, Curry's 34 years old. It doesn't seem to be slowing down too much, but at some point, the Warriors will start to drop off as well. So potentially, there's one there.
Think so, but bloody with Poole, like
I know, it's ridiculous. But
the thing as well is when you get the emergent. Are you saying with Jordan Poole coming through, or do you mean Chris Paul?
Jordan.
Yeah, well, I think, but that probably does take away. Like Curry's probably not going to be taking as many shots, but that I guess he becomes more of a Chris Paul type playmaker, and he'll still do his shooting, but like probably, let's say he does 10 threes a game, maybe that goes down to seven or eight. As he gets older and as Jordan Poole emerges more and more.
Yeah, I mean, like the other thing is, like I will say, I feel like these guys are going to be playing like into their late 30s easily at like an exceptionally high level. Sports science is not what it was, 10 years ago, let alone 20 years ago. So, and these guys are all taking care of their bodies. So I feel like they'll be right.
I also feel like shooters are a little bit. It's not like they're getting banged up in the paint.
Yeah.
Every night.
Is the sports science that's developed from 20 years ago just like don't get fucked up every night after a game? Go gamble and
go to the strip club
and then obviously James Harden's like not listened to that. He's still playing like it's the 90s, and that's why his game's like way worse than everyone else's.
Probably.
Like a lot of I love the word sports science when it's like, yeah, well, I mean, you used to just get fucked up before a game. Like Andrew Johns in rugby league used to famously took ecstasy before like an Origin game or something like. The night before. Like, so yeah, I think people have just become more professional. Let's say.
I'm just looking through the 2019 draft when the Warriors got Poole at 28. There are it's crazy how many misses there are in drafts, right?
Yeah, I think we've spoken
about depressing.
Like it's like you look at like most of these guys no one's heard of, and then there's like a real good guy in the 20s or something. But I think that's probably enough NBA for tonight. But for the fourth topic tonight, we wanted to talk about NHL and basically cover off these playoffs, because these playoffs are pretty good. And so I wanted to pose the question in the middle of the NHL playoffs, which is basically, why should you be watching the NHL playoffs?
Yeah, if you didn't listen to me like when I first started talking just before this and got on the Colorado Avalanche, like do it now. There is a lot of bad blood between the St. Louis Blues and the Colorado Avalanche. Kadri, who's a Colorado Avs player, fell over into a goalkeeper, St. Louis Blues goalkeeper. I don't think there was anything malicious about it, but injured their goalkeeper, so he's now out. In the game the other night that the Avs won 6-3, just so many fights getting started, players targeting him. Like there's lots of goals in this Avs Blues series. Unfortunately, like the Avs couldn't get the job done last night, so it's 3-2 now, I believe. But it's exciting. Like honestly, that series alone is worth it. Watching Avs play this season, seeing like Nathan McKinnon get a hat trick last night, and for anyone that doesn't know, in ice hockey, when somebody gets a hat trick, everyone throws their hats onto the ice. So like the game had to be paused. There's just hundreds, if not thousands, of hats pouring onto the ice. So it's been really fun to watch. I mean, like the Flames Oilers game's been exciting as well, because there are a lot of goals. Like ice hockey is great when there's a lot of goals. Like watching, games where it's like 2-1, like kind of sucks, but
that's kind of like soccer, football, soccer. I mean, you can still have exciting games that might end up 1-0. It's just there's lots of good saves or just can't quite finish. But you'd much rather go to a game that's 3-all or 4-3 than one that's 1-0. So yeah, but as you're pointing out though, like there are a lot of these games, this playoffs, where there have been high scoring. Compared to the NBA, where some of these games have been blowouts, these have been, there was a game, that Blues Avalanche last night was overtime. You talked about 6-3, 5-3. I'm just looking at some of the other scores. It's 2-1 right now with the Rangers and the Hurricanes, and us tied up 2-2. So it's kind of what you want, even if you don't like love the sport or know the sport that well, like close games and sort of that neck and neck is, gets your interest going.
I was just going to say, the thing I love about hockey is that, like, and I think this is like the difference between others, sports like this, like soccer, is that because the puck moves so quickly from end to end, it feels like there could be a goal at any point. And so even if you're down a couple of goals, it feels like, you're not that far away from potentially just scoring a couple quickly and turning things around. So the puck's always moving around. It's always behind the goal, behind the other goal. And so it's kind of like an edge of your seat watch. And when it's playoff hockey, it's just even more exciting. I think it's super fun to watch.
Yeah, and so all the series have been great as well. I mean, obviously, like the Tampa Bay Lightning sweeping the Florida Panthers was a bit surprising, I think, in my head. But all the other games, like Rangers Hurricanes, way better than I thought it was going to be as a series, and it's currently tied up 2 apiece, 2 games each. The Avs and the Blues 3-2. Those teams hate each other. Then the Oilers and the Flames 3-1. Again, lots of goals, exciting stuff. Some great storylines. Like I said, watch, if anyone that watched the game, definitely watch tomorrow's Avs St. Louis game. There's just so much bad blood between those teams. And I think this game's back in St. Louis as well. So, yeah.
It is. So that actually is quite well poised, right? Like, especially from a neutral perspective, you're saying there's a bit of history, there's bad blood, but, key player getting injured. One team's going to say it was malicious or with intent. The other ones are going to say it's not. Regardless of that point, it creates that narrative. And then, they're going back home in St. Louis. I can imagine the fans base there is going to get pretty feral. And then,
I think one of them, that Kadri guy, was getting death threats. Like, his wife put up all the death threats online that he was getting. Like, it's pretty wild. But I mean, Kadri, when that was happening, ended up scoring a hat trick in St. Louis and quieted the crowd down quite a lot.
Love that.
So it's there's always these great ones, but definitely keep an eye on that game tomorrow. Hopefully the Avs can get it closed out.
And if we look beyond, so obviously, as you say, Tampa beating Carolina Panthers 4-0, while all these other series have been really
Florida
tight,
Panthers, not Carolina Panthers.
Florida Panthers, sorry. Carolina Panthers.
Carolina Panthers.
Similar. It's Carolina Hurricanes, isn't it?
Hurricanes, yeah.
Yeah. They're playing the Rangers now. That's right.
They're in Raleigh, not Charlotte.
But anyway, we've spoken about this before in other with the NBA, having that 4-0, and I don't know enough about hockey as to how big of an advantage. While these other teams are just duking it out in these hard-fought physical series, you've got the Lightning, who are the 2-time defending champs, who swept aside and have probably going to have a good week rest before, probably a week and a half before they have to play another game. So it'll be interesting to see how that, particularly on their first game, how they benefit from that, or whether the other team's more match hardened and just sort of, in the thick of things and can continue on with some momentum.
It should be fun. So 8 p.m. tomorrow, Avalanche Blues. So midday on a Friday. No, midday on a Saturday in New Zealand. Very lovely time.
What's the sort of coverage like in New Zealand for hockey? Is ESPN
pretty sure ESPN's got it, and as long as it doesn't clash with the NBA or something, I think they should probably show
it. It would probably be on at some point. It might be live, unless they've got several channels.
The thing is, ESPN doesn't show it all here, but ESPN's pretty good with their international service by having the international rights. So,
and because at the end of the day, they're not clashing with those sort of time zones. You're not really 12 o'clock. Unless you're wanting to watch horse racing, there's not a lot of sport to be watched. And
I mean, I don't know. Well, there's probably an NBA game on tomorrow night, so maybe that's on ESPN.
That'll be ESPN, but maybe the hockey's on ESPN too.
Yeah. And exactly. So it might not be every game's on, but certainly a lot of the key games, and certainly the Stanley Cup will be on. It'll be televised back home. So keep an eye on that. But let's move into the final topic of the podcast and talk betting, as we always do. So NBA, NHL, Champions League, Formula One. What are we thinking this weekend?
So I know I've done this to Dave before. I'm going to steal Dave's bet.
Love that. Love it.
What I'm going to bet on, though, is that the full-time result of the Champions League is a draw. I reckon it goes to extra time. I reckon it's probably going to be like a 1-1 type scenario. Both teams will be pretty conservative on the day. That's my thought. I don't know if it'll happen, but I feel like the last kind of couple maybe have gone to extra times and penalties. Maybe not. Maybe I'm making that up. What is COVID? But because it's taken away the timeline. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts. Avs to win tomorrow night as well. So I'm just going to do a cheeky like multi, I think, which is Avs to win and then full-time draw.
Yeah,
Full-time
I like
draw.
it. So full-time draw for the Champions League. Yeah, I was
Champions League
thinking about
final
the
hasn't gone
Champions
to penalties since.
No, I was going to say
even
this,
extra time
Liverpool
since
beat
2016.
Tottenham. Liverpool beat Tottenham 2-0 a few years back.
Yeah.
Bayern Munich beat PSG in regulation, and I think Chelsea beat City maybe 2-0 last year or 1-0.
1-0 in regulation.
Yeah.
Cool.
To be honest, what the main thing that's come out of him is there hasn't really been a good game, I think, since Liverpool Real Madrid was the last good Champions League final. If memory serves me right, and so that's good for 4 years ago now. And this is the revenge game. So Liverpool were kind of comfortably beaten that night. I'm keen to get around that game. I'm actually going to go against what Flex has said in terms of, and he's probably going to be close to being right in terms of, it's a final. Everyone sort of kind of tightens up in terms of style, but I think both teams are quite attacking. I think there's going to be goals. Watching Liverpool play last weekend against the Wolves, they have a lot of goals that they'll concede in them based on that. I mean, it might not be the same defense back line there, but so I'm going to go 3-2. I'm going to go predict the score and go with 3-2. I think it's going to be. I'm a Liverpool fan, so I'm a little bit biased here, but I'm going to go there. I think it's going to be 3-1, sort of heading into the last sort of 5-ish, 10 minutes, and then Real will peg one back, as often happens in these sort of in sports, to kind of create the drama, to have a tight finish. But I'm going to go back on the 3-2 final score, which should get me pretty good odds. I haven't actually looked at that yet. That's going to be me. I'm going to leave off golf this week.
Yeah.
But tough last week.
Yeah. Good. It was good 3 rounds for Ryan Fox, Kiwi. Fourth round struggled a little bit, but so I'm going to have a look at the Monaco Grand Prix this weekend. And Monaco is always an interesting one because it's a famous street circuit in Monaco, but it's so narrow that overtaking is very hard. So quite often, basically, the guy on pole usually wins it, or the guy that's first off the line basically wins it. And so I suspect, provided there's no mechanical issues, it'll be Verstappen or Leclerc that wins. But I think the other thing is, in and amongst the pack, because it's so narrow, there is potentially stuff, the chance of a bit of chaos in there and safety cars and stuff. So I think where the value is to try and look for one of the outsiders to maybe sneak onto the podium. And so, you'd look at a guy like maybe Valtteri Bottas, who's been performing pretty well for Alfa Romeo at $6, maybe Lando Norris at $10 in a McLaren. Even just like Lewis Hamilton and George Russell at $3.25 to get on the podium, I don't think it's terrible money, because I think in Monaco usually there'll be a crash somewhere and a safety car at some point. So there's a chance for some of the guys that are a bit lower down to get themselves up onto the picking order. But I think there's I'd look for podium finishes as the place to make money for that one.
Yeah, agreed. Like it's a good show. It was actually interesting on the weekend, right? Like who was it? Leclerc was. I actually didn't watch the race, but
it was a crazy race.
And I saw Leclerc was up by 30-40 seconds.
He was going to win. He was cruising home, and then his car broke down.
I was just like, that to me is like, that's boring. Like, it's game over.
Yeah.
It's like an NBA conference finals game. It's like no need to watch that. And
but it actually made it more interesting because it made it more interesting because the guys, I think Verstappen, might have been George Russell and someone else, like 2, 3, 4, were all pretty close together. And so by having Leclerc out, it meant there was quite a good fight for the next few positions. But Obviously, Verstappen came out on top, but I think we're seeing as well with Formula One, Mercedes are getting better and better, and so there's a real third manufacturer in the mix there over the next few races. So it's pretty exciting stuff.
So we got the Formula One. We've always earmarked that we're sort of slowly getting to that point where this pod's going to have to start talking about cornhole and hot dog.
We are getting it's June. No World Cup in June. We're going to be like scratching in June.
Yeah. So there's going to be some innovative sort of ideas or creative ideas for discussion points when with the NBA and NHL are probably 2 and a bit weeks away from.
We might do, yeah. We can talk cornhole. You had the idea of talking the hot dog eating contest. We could try like redraft one of the old NFL drafts or NBA drafts and see where players would have ended up potentially.
Also, we're going to
we'll work something out.
A fantasy football draft, hopefully with the pod or something like that. We'll do something fun. We'll work out something cool.
Yeah, we'll set up a competition to get into our fantasy football league or something. The 3rd and 5 fantasy football competition. We'll plan something. All right, gents, should we wrap it up?
Yep.
Wrap it up.
Beautiful. All right. Thanks so much for listening in. Check us out on social media as always, and we'll talk to you next week. See you later.